My name is Ernestine Crawford. I am 69 years old. I have lived a long life filled with joy and sorrow, triumph and heartbreak. I thought I had seen everything. I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. I was wrong. Let me tell you about the night I watched my daughter-in-law throw a suitcase into the lake. The night that changed everything I thought I knew about my family. It was a Thursday evening in late September. The air was crisp with the promise of autumn. The leaves were just beginning to turn golden around the edges. My son Winston and his wife Clarissa had invited me to spend the weekend at their lakeside cabin, a beautiful property they had purchased 3 years ago. I arrived earlier than expected. Traffic had been light, and I had made good time on the drive. When I pulled up to the cabin around 7 o'clock, the sun was setting over the lake, painting the water in shades of orange and pink. Winston's car was not in the driveway. He must have still been at work, I thought. But Clarissa's car was there, so I assumed she was inside preparing for my visit. I got out of my car and stretched my legs. The cabin was quiet, too quiet. I was about to walk to the front door when I noticed movement near the lake. It was Clarissa. She was walking quickly toward the water's edge, dragging something behind her, something heavy, something that scraped against the ground with every step. A suitcase, a large black suitcase. I froze, hidden in the shadow of the trees that lined the driveway. Something about the way Clarissa was moving made me hesitate to call out to her. Something about her posture, hunched, furtive, desperate, told me I was witnessing something I was not supposed to see. Clarissa reached the edge of the dock that extended over the lake. She looked around quickly, checking to see if anyone was watching. I ducked behind a tree, my heart pounding. She did not see me. With a grunt of effort, Clarissa lifted the suitcase. It was clearly heavy. She struggled with the weight, her arms straining. And then, with one powerful heave, she threw the suitcase into the lake. It hit the water with a tremendous splash. For a moment, it floated on the surface, the black fabric glistening in the fading light. Then, slowly, it began to sink. Down, down, down into the dark depths of the lake. Clarissa stood on the dock, watching it disappear. Her chest was heaving. Her hands were shaking. And even from where I stood, 50 feet away, I could see something that made my blood run cold. Her hands were covered in what looked like blood. I pressed myself against the tree, afraid to breathe. What had I just witnessed? What was in that suitcase? Why was my daughter-in-law disposing of it in the middle of the lake? Clarissa turned and walked back toward the cabin. Her movements were quick, purposeful. She went inside and closed the door behind her. I stood in the darkness for a long time, my mind racing with questions and terrible possibilities. What was in that suitcase? Why were Clarissa's hands bloody? And where was my son? Now, before I tell you more, I need to ask you something. Are you with me? Are you feeling the fear and confusion that I felt in that moment? If you are, I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to subscribe to this channel. Press that subscribe button. It is free, and it shows me that you want more stories like this. Stories about secrets and revelations. Stories about families torn apart by dark truths. Also, press the like button. That thumbs up helps more people find this channel. It helps me reach others who need to hear this story. And do not forget the notification bell. That little bell icon is so important. When you turn it on, you will get a message every time I post a new story. You will never miss anything. One more thing. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Are you from Texas, Michigan, North Carolina? Maybe you are watching from the Bahamas or London or Johannesburg or somewhere else around the world. I want to know who is here with me. I want to build a family of strong people who support each other. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you about my son Winston, about his wife Clarissa, and about the cracks in their marriage that I should have seen but never did. My son Winston was born in 1985, the second of my 3 children. He was a good boy, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of child who watched more than he spoke, who observed the world with wise eyes that seemed older than his years. Winston grew into a successful man. He studied finance in college and built a career in investment banking. By 30, he was making more money than I had ever dreamed of. By 35, he had bought his first house. By 40, he had the lakeside cabin, 2 luxury cars, and everything material that a person could want. But Winston was not happy. I could see it in his eyes, even when he smiled. There was something missing, something he was searching for but could never quite find. And then he met Clarissa. Clarissa Fontaine came into Winston's life like a hurricane. She was beautiful, stunningly beautiful, with smooth, dark skin, high cheekbones, and eyes that seemed to look right through you. She was sophisticated, educated, charming. She worked as an interior designer, creating beautiful spaces for wealthy clients. Winston fell for her immediately. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within a year, they were married. I had reservations from the beginning. Not because Clarissa was not a good person. She was pleasant enough, polite, respectful. She said all the right things and did all the right things. But there was something about her that I could not quite trust. Something behind her smile that did not match her words. Something cold beneath the warmth she projected. I told myself I was being foolish. I told myself I was just a protective mother who did not want to share her son. I told myself to give Clarissa a chance. So I did. For 7 years, I gave her a chance. And for 7 years, I watched my son change. Winston became more withdrawn, more anxious. The light that had always been in his eyes dimmed little by little. He stopped calling me as often. He stopped visiting on holidays. He made excuses when I suggested family gatherings. Clarissa is tired, he would say. Clarissa has a headache. Clarissa does not feel like company. Always Clarissa. Everything revolved around Clarissa. My other children noticed it too. My daughter Marceline said Winston seemed scared of his own wife. My younger son Cornelius said Winston flinched whenever Clarissa raised her voice. "Something is wrong, Mama," Marceline told me one Christmas when Winston and Clarissa failed to appear for dinner. "Something is very wrong with that marriage." I knew she was right, but what could I do? Winston was a grown man. He had made his choice. All I could do was watch and wait and pray that things would get better. They did not get better. The invitation to the lakeside cabin came out of nowhere. I had not seen Winston in almost 3 months. Our phone calls had become shorter and less frequent. He always sounded tired, distracted, like he was holding something back. So when Clarissa called me personally to invite me for the weekend, I was surprised. "We want you to come, Mama Ernestine," she said, her voice warm and welcoming. "Winston misses you. We both want to spend time with you." I did not know what to say. Clarissa had never called me Mama before. She had never seemed particularly interested in spending time with me. But I was desperate to see my son, so I accepted the invitation. "I will be there Friday evening," I said. "Perfect," Clarissa replied. "We cannot wait." But I did not wait until Friday. I left on Thursday instead, hopping to surprise them, hopping to have an extra evening with Winston. That decision may have saved my life, or it may have destroyed everything. I still do not know which. After watching Clarissa dispose of the suitcase, I sat in my car for a long time, trying to decide what to do. Should I confront her? Should I demand to know what was in that suitcase? Should I call the police, tell them what I had witnessed? Or should I pretend I had seen nothing, walk into the cabin with a smile and act like everything was normal? My mind raced through the possibilities. Each option seemed worse than the last. Finally, I made a decision. I would not confront Clarissa directly. Not yet. First, I needed to find out where Winston was. I needed to make sure my son was safe. I pulled out my phone and called him. It rang 5 times, then went to voicemail. "Hi, you have reached Winston Crawford. Leave a message." "Winston, it is Mama. I am almost at the cabin. Just wanted to let you know I am on my way. Call me when you get this." I hung up and stared at the phone, willing it to ring. It did not. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. I walked toward the cabin, my legs trembling with every step. I climbed the porch stairs and knocked on the front door. Footsteps inside, The door opened. Clarissa stood before me, a bright smile on her face. She had changed clothes since I had seen her at the lake. She was wearing a clean white blouse and dark pants. Her hands were freshly washed, no trace of the blood I had seen earlier. "Mama Ernestine," she exclaimed. "You are early, what a wonderful surprise." She pulled me into a hug. I forced myself to return it, my arms stiff and awkward. Come in," Clarissa said, stepping aside. "Winston just called. He is running late at work. He will be here in about an hour." Relief flooded through me. Winston was okay. He was at work. He would be here soon. But then another thought crept into my mind. If Winston was fine, then what had been in that suitcase, whose blood was on Clarissa's hands? "Can I get you something to drink?" Clarissa asked, leading me to the living room. "Tea, coffee, wine." "Tea would be lovely," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Coming right up." Clarissa disappeared into the kitchen. I sat on the sofa, looking around the cabin. Everything seemed normal, clean, organized, no sign of anything wrong. But I knew what I had seen. I knew Clarissa had thrown a heavy suitcase into the lake. I knew her hands had been covered in blood. Something was very, very wrong. Winston arrived an hour later, just as Clarissa had said. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. His shoulders were slumped with exhaustion. But when he saw me, his face lit up with genuine joy. "Mama," he pulled me into a tight embrace. "I did not expect you until tomorrow." "I wanted to surprise you," I said, holding him close. "I have missed you, baby." "I have missed you too." We sat down to dinner, a simple meal that Clarissa had prepared. The conversation was light, pleasant, normal. But I could not stop watching Clarissa. Every move she made, every word she spoke. I was searching for cracks in her facade, signs of whatever darkness I had witnessed at the lake. She gave nothing away. She was charming and attentive, the perfect hostess. She laughed at Winston's jokes and refilled my tea and asked about my garden and my church and my friends. It was all so normal, so ordinary. And that made it even more terrifying. After dinner, Winston excused himself to make some work calls. Clarissa and I were left alone in the living room. "More tea, Mama Ernestine?" she asked. "No, thank you." Clarissa sat across from me, her dark eyes studying my face. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "You seem tense." I forced a smile. "Just tired from the drive. I am not as young as I used to be." "Of course, you should rest. Let me show you to your room." She led me upstairs to a cozy guest room with a view of the lake. Through the window, I could see the dock where she had stood just hours ago. The water was dark and still, hiding its secrets in its depths. "Sleep well, Mama Ernestine," Clarissa said from the doorway. "We have a big weekend planned." "Thank you, dear." She closed the door. I heard her footsteps retreating down the hallway. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding. I could not let this go. I could not pretend I had not seen what I saw. Tomorrow, I would find answers. Tomorrow, I would discover the truth. But for now, I needed to be careful. I needed to be smart. I was alone in this cabin with a woman who had just disposed of something terrible in the lake. A woman who might be dangerous. A woman who might be a murderer. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak and groan of the old cabin. My mind raced with questions. What was in the suitcase? Why had Clarissa thrown it in the lake? What had caused the blood on her hands? And the question that haunted me most of all, was my son in danger? Around 2 a.m, I heard something. Footsteps in the hallway, soft, careful, someone trying not to be heard. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I could see a shadow in the crack beneath it. Someone was standing there, listening. Then, slowly, the door handle began to turn. My heart nearly stopped. I grabbed my phone, ready to dial for help. The handle turned completely. The door began to open. And then, from somewhere downstairs, a phone rang. The person outside my door froze. The shadow moved away quickly. Footsteps retreated down the hallway. I lay perfectly still, my phone clutched to my chest, tears streaming down my face. Someone had tried to enter my room in the middle of the night. Was it Clarissa? Was it Winston? And what would have happened if that phone had not rung? The next morning, I made a decision. I could not stay in this cabin pretending everything was normal. I could not share meals and make small talk with a woman I suspected of terrible things. I needed to find out what was in that suitcase. And there was only one way to do that. I had to retrieve it from the lake. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The next morning, I woke before dawn. I had barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Clarissa standing on that dock, heaving the suitcase into the dark water. I saw the blood on her hands. I heard the footsteps outside my door. I knew I could not stay in this cabin any longer without knowing the truth. I crept out of bed and dressed quietly. Jeans, a warm sweater, comfortable shoes. If I was going to retrieve that suitcase from the lake, I needed to be practical. The house was silent. Winston and Clarissa were still asleep. I tiptoed down the stairs, avoiding the steps that I knew would creak. The kitchen was dark. I grabbed my car keys from the counter and slipped out the back door. The morning air was cold and crisp. Mist rose from the surface of the lake, giving the whole scene an eerie, dreamlike quality. The dock stretched out into the water, disappearing into the fog. I walked to the edge of the dock and looked down into the murky depths. The suitcase was somewhere down there, somewhere in the darkness, waiting to reveal its secrets. But how was I supposed to retrieve it? I was 69 years old. I could not dive into a cold lake and fish around for a sunken suitcase. I needed help. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Who could I trust? Who would believe me? Who would help me without asking too many questions? My finger stopped on a name: Cornelius, my youngest son. Cornelius was a firefighter. He was trained in rescue operations, including water rescues. He was strong, capable, and most importantly, he would believe me. I dialed his number. "Mama," his voice was groggy with sleep. "It is 5 in the morning. What is wrong?" "Cornelius, I need your help. Something is happening at Winston's cabin. Something bad." "What do you mean? What is going on?" I took a deep breath and told him everything. The suitcase, the blood, the footsteps outside my door, all of it. There was a long pause when I finished. "Mama, are you sure about this? Are you sure you saw what you think you saw?" "I am sure, baby. I know what I saw. Clarissa threw that suitcase into the lake, and I need to know what was inside." Another pause. "All right, I am on my way. Do not do anything until I get there. And Mama." "Yes." "Be careful." Cornelius arrived 3 hours later. By then, Winston and Clarissa were awake. I had pretended to just be waking up myself, joining them for breakfast as if nothing was wrong. When Cornelius's truck pulled into the driveway, Winston looked surprised. "Cornelius, what is he doing here?" "I invited him," I said quickly. "I thought it would be nice to have more family together. You do not mind, do you?" Winston shook his head slowly. "No, of course not. It is just unexpected." Clarissa's expression was harder to read. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she watched Cornelius get out of his truck. Was that suspicion I saw? Fear. "Well," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "the more the merrier." I managed to get Cornelius alone that afternoon. We walked down to the lake together, pretending to admire the view. Once we were out of earshot of the cabin, I pointed to the spot where Clarissa had stood. She threw it from right there. It sank about 20 feet from the end of the dock. Cornelius studied the water. "The lake is not that deep here. Maybe 15, 20 feet. I can dive down and look around." "You brought your equipment." "I brought everything I might need." He looked at me with serious eyes. "But Mama, are you prepared for what we might find?" I thought about that question. What was I expecting? What did I think was in that suitcase? The truth was, I did not know, but I knew it was something terrible, something that Clarissa wanted to hide forever. I am prepared, I said. I need to know the truth. Cornelius nodded. Tonight then, after everyone is asleep, I will retrieve the suitcase. The rest of the day passed in tense normalcy. We had lunch together, we played cards, we walked around the property. Clarissa was the perfect hostess, attentive and charming. But I noticed things I had not noticed before. The way she watched Winston's every move, the way she controlled every conversation, the way Winston seemed to shrink in her presence, deferring to her on everything. And I noticed how Winston looked at Cornelius when Clarissa was not watching. There was something in his eyes, something that looked like desperation, like he wanted to say something but could not find the words. That evening, after dinner, Winston pulled me aside. Mama, can we talk? Of course, baby. What is it? He glanced toward the kitchen, where Clarissa was washing dishes. Then he leaned close and spoke in a whisper. Mama, I need to tell you something important, but not here, not now. What is it, Winston? You are scaring me. Tomorrow morning, early, meet me at the dock before anyone else wakes up. Please, Mama, it is important. Before I could respond, Clarissa appeared in the doorway. What are you two whispering about? She asked, her voice light but her eyes sharp. Just catching up, Winston said quickly. You know how Mama likes to gossip. Clarissa smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes. Of course. Well, do not stay up too late. We have a big day planned tomorrow. She walked away, but I could feel her watching us even after she disappeared up the stairs. Winston squeezed my hand. Tomorrow morning, he repeated. Please, Mama. That night, after the house had gone quiet, Cornelius and I crept out to the lake. He had brought a wetsuit, a flashlight, and a length of rope. The water was cold, he warned me. He would not be able to stay under for long. If the suitcase is down there, I will find it, he said. Wait here. He slipped into the water with barely a splash. I stood on the dock, watching the beam of his flashlight disappear beneath the surface. The minutes stretched out like hours. I strained my eyes, trying to see through the dark water. My heart pounded in my chest. And then, finally, Cornelius surfaced. He was holding the suitcase. Got it, he gasped, swimming toward the dock. Help me up. I grabbed his arm and helped him climb onto the dock. He set the suitcase down between us, water streaming from its surface. It was heavy. Even waterlogged, I could tell it was heavy. Should we open it? Cornelius asked. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to wait, to take the suitcase somewhere safe and examine it in the light of day. But another part of me needed to know. Right now, right here. Open it, I said. Cornelius found the zipper and pulled. The suitcase opened slowly, water draining from its interior. We both leaned forward, flashlights pointed at the contents. And what I saw made me stumble backward. A scream caught in my throat. The suitcase was full of documents. Hundreds of them, stacked and bundled and soaked with lake water. Financial records, legal papers, photographs. And at the very top, a single manila envelope with 2 words written on the front in black marker. Insurance policy. What is all this? Cornelius whispered. I reached into the suitcase with trembling hands and pulled out the envelope. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Photographs of Winston, photographs of bruises on his arms and back, photographs of cuts and welts and injuries that no accident could explain. My son had been abused, physically, systematically, for who knows how long. Oh my God, I breathed. Oh my God, Winston. Cornelius was flipping through the documents, his face growing darker with each page. Mama, look at this. He handed me a stack of papers. They were financial records, bank statements, wire transfers, all showing money being moved from Winston's accounts to accounts in Clarissa's name. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions. She has been stealing from him, Cornelius said, draining his accounts, and these photographs. She has been documenting the abuse, her own abuse. Why would she document it? Insurance, Cornelius said grimly. Blackmail. If Winston ever tried to leave or expose her, she could threaten to say he was the abuser. She could use these photographs to destroy him. I felt sick. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the papers. But why throw it all in the lake? Why get rid of the evidence? Cornelius looked at me with troubled eyes. Maybe she does not need it anymore. Maybe she is planning something else, something worse. A chill ran down my spine. Winston's words echoed in my mind. Tomorrow morning, meet me at the dock. It is important. What was he going to tell me? What did he know? And what was Clarissa planning? We hid the suitcase in Cornelius's truck, covering it with a tarp. Then we crept back into the cabin, trying not to wake anyone. But as I climbed the stairs to my room, I heard something. Voices, low and angry, coming from Winston and Clarissa's bedroom. I paused on the landing, straining to hear. "Told you not to invite her," Clarissa was saying. "Your mother sees too much. She asks too many questions." "I did not invite her," Winston replied, his voice barely audible. "She came early. I could not stop her." "And now your brother is here too. This is getting out of control, Winston." "I know. I am sorry. I will fix it." "You had better fix it, because if anyone finds out what you have done—" "What I have done," Winston's voice rose slightly. "I have not done anything. You are the one who—" A sharp sound, a slap. I heard Winston gasp in pain. "Do not forget who is in charge here," Clarissa said, her voice cold and hard. "Do not forget what I can do to you." Silence. I stood frozen on the landing, tears streaming down my face. My son was being abused, right now, right here, in the room just feet away from me. And I had been blind to it for 7 years. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with everything I had learned. Clarissa was abusing my son, physically, financially, emotionally. She had been controlling him for years, isolating him from his family, stealing his money, documenting injuries to use as blackmail. And Winston had been suffering in silence, too afraid or too ashamed to ask for help. But why had Clarissa thrown the suitcase into the lake? Why get rid of the evidence now, after all these years? The answer came to me slowly, forming in my mind like a dark cloud. She was planning something that would not require blackmail anymore, something final. Clarissa was going to kill my son. The next morning, I woke before dawn. Winston had asked me to meet him at the dock. He had something important to tell me, and now I understood why. He was trying to escape. He was trying to ask for help. I dressed quickly and crept downstairs. The cabin was silent. Clarissa's bedroom door was closed. I slipped out the back door and walked toward the lake. The mist was heavy this morning, thicker than before. I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. As I approached the dock, I saw a figure standing at the end. Tall, familiar. Winston. The figure turned. It was not Winston. It was Clarissa. "Good morning, Mama Ernestine," she said, her voice eerily calm. "I thought I might find you here." I stopped walking. Every instinct told me to run. "Where is Winston?" "Winston is indisposed. He will not be joining us this morning." "What have you done to him?" Clarissa smiled. It was the coldest smile I had ever seen. "I have done what needed to be done, what I should have done a long time ago." She stepped toward me, and I saw something glinting in her hand. A knife. "You should not have come here, Mama Ernestine. You should not have seen what you saw. But do not worry. Soon it will all be over." She raised the knife. And from somewhere in the mist, I heard a voice. "Mama, get down." "Cornelius." I threw myself to the ground, just as Cornelius emerged from the fog, tackling Clarissa before she could reach me. The knife flew from her hand. They struggled on the dock, rolling dangerously close to the edge. And then, with a tremendous splash, they both went into the water. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest. The water churned where Cornelius and Clarissa had fallen in. I could see their shapes struggling beneath the surface, dark shadows against the murky depths. "Cornelius," I screamed. "Cornelius." For a terrible moment, nothing happened. The water splashed and roiled. Bubbles rose to the surface. And then Cornelius emerged, gasping for air. He was alone. "Where is she?" I cried. "Where is Clarissa?" Cornelius swam to the dock and pulled himself up, water streaming from his clothes. His face was grim. "She got away, swam toward the other side of the lake. I could not hold her." "We have to find Winston. She said she did something to him." We ran back toward the cabin, our feet pounding against the wooden dock and then the soft grass. The mist was beginning to lift, but the world still felt hazy and unreal. The back door of the cabin was open. We burst inside, calling Winston's name. "Winston, Winston, where are you?" No answer. We searched the first floor, the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, nothing. We raced upstairs. The guest rooms were empty. The bathroom was empty. And then we reached the master bedroom. The door was closed, locked. Cornelius did not hesitate. He stepped back and kicked the door with all his strength. It flew open, the frame splintering. And there was Winston. He was lying on the bed, unconscious. His face was pale. His breathing was shallow. There was a glass of water on the nightstand beside him, half empty. "She drugged him," I said, rushing to his side. "She put something in his water." Cornelius pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "We need an ambulance at the Crawford cabin on Miller Lake. Possible poisoning. The victim is unconscious but breathing. Hurry." He hung up and turned to me. "Mama, stay with him. I am going to look for Clarissa. She cannot have gotten far." "Be careful, baby. She is dangerous." "I know." He disappeared down the stairs. I heard the back door slam as he ran out into the morning light. I sat beside Winston, holding his hand, tears streaming down my face. "Hold on, baby," I whispered. "Help is coming, just hold on." The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. The paramedics worked quickly, loading Winston onto a stretcher and carrying him to the waiting vehicle. They started an IV, checked his vitals, and began administering treatment. "What did she give him?" one of them asked. "I do not know. She drugged him. That is all I know." "We will run tests at the hospital. For now, we are doing everything we can." I rode in the ambulance with Winston, holding his hand the entire way. His eyes fluttered occasionally, but he did not wake up. At the hospital, they rushed him into the emergency room. I was told to wait in the lobby to let the doctors do their work. I sat in a hard plastic chair, staring at the floor, praying harder than I had ever prayed in my life. "Please, God, please do not take my son." An hour later, Cornelius arrived at the hospital. His clothes were still damp. His face was drawn with exhaustion and frustration. "Did you find her?" I asked. He shook his head. "She is gone. I searched the whole property, the woods, the road. No sign of her anywhere. She could be miles away by now. I called the police. They are looking for her. They have her description, her car information, everything. And the suitcase, the evidence. I gave it to the police. They are going through everything. The financial records, the photographs, all of it." I nodded slowly. At least there was proof. At least the truth was coming to light. "How is Winston?" Cornelius asked. "I do not know. They are still working on him." We sat together in the waiting room, watching the clock tick by. Minutes felt like hours. Every time a doctor or nurse walked past, I held my breath, hoping for news. Finally, a doctor emerged from the emergency room and walked toward us. "Mrs. Crawford." I stood up, my legs trembling. "Yes, that is me. How is my son?" "Your son is stable. We identified the substance in his system, a heavy sedative, likely administered in his drink last night. We have flushed his system, and he is responding well to treatment." Relief flooded through me. I grabbed Cornelius's arm for support. "Can I see him?" "Yes, he is awake now. He has been asking for you." Winston was sitting up in bed when I entered the room. He looked terrible, pale, weak. There were dark circles under his eyes and a haunted expression on his face. But he was alive. My son was alive. "Mama," he said, his voice cracking, "I am so sorry." I rushed to his side and pulled him into a hug. "You have nothing to apologize for, baby. Nothing at all. I should have told you. I should have asked for help years ago, but I was so ashamed. I thought no one would believe me." "I believe you, Winston. I believe everything." He pulled back and looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "You know, about Clarissa, about what she did to me." "I know, baby. Cornelius and I found the suitcase. We saw the photographs. We saw the financial records." Winston's face crumpled. "She kept all of that as insurance. She said if I ever tried to leave, she would tell everyone I was the abuser. She said she would destroy me." "She cannot hurt you anymore, Winston. She is gone. The police are looking for her." "Gone?" Winston looked frightened. "Where did she go?" I told him everything. How I had seen Clarissa throw the suitcase into the lake. How Cornelius had retrieved it. How Clarissa had tried to attack me on the dock. How she had escaped into the mist. When I finished, Winston was silent for a long moment. "There is more, Mama. More that you do not know." "What do you mean?" Winston took a shaky breath. "Clarissa was not just abusing me. She was planning something bigger, something she had been working on for years." "Planning what?" "To take everything. My money, my property, my life. She had a whole plan. A scheme that would leave her with everything and me with nothing." "What kind of scheme?" Winston looked at me with haunted eyes. "She was going to kill me, Mama, and make it look like an accident." The story that Winston told me was horrifying. Clarissa had been planning his death for over a year. She had researched methods. She had gathered supplies. She had carefully arranged things so that she would be the sole beneficiary of his estate. "She took out life insurance policies on me," Winston said. "Millions of dollars worth. She forged my signature on documents. She created fake wills that left everything to her." "Why did you not leave? Why did you not run?" "Because she had me trapped. The photographs, the evidence she had manufactured. She said if I ever tried to leave, she would go to the police and claim I had been abusing her. She said she would destroy my reputation, my career, everything." He wiped tears from his eyes. And I believed her. I was so beaten down, so broken, that I believed everything she said. I thought I deserved what was happening to me. I took his hand in mine. "You did not deserve any of this, Winston. You are a victim. Clarissa is a monster." "I know that now, but for years I could not see it. She was so good at manipulation, so good at making me feel like everything was my fault." "What made you finally decide to reach out? What changed?" Winston looked at me with tears in his eyes. "You, Mama. When you came to the cabin, when I saw you, I remembered who I used to be. I remembered the family I had pushed away. And I realized I could not do this alone anymore." "You will never be alone again, baby. I promise you that." Over the next few hours, more details emerged. The police arrived at the hospital to take Winston's statement. He told them everything: the years of abuse, the financial manipulation, the murder plot. He also told them something else, something that made my blood run cold. "Clarissa is not working alone," Winston said. "She has a partner, someone who has been helping her plan all of this." "Who?" the detective asked. Winston hesitated. "Her brother. His name is Malcolm Fontaine. He is the one who helped her forge the documents. He is the one who is going to help stage my death." Malcolm Fontaine. I had met him once briefly at Winston and Clarissa's wedding, a quiet man with cold eyes. I had thought nothing of him at the time. Now I realized he was part of this terrible conspiracy. "Do you know where he is?" the detective asked. "He lives in the city, about an hour from here. Clarissa was planning to meet up with him after." Winston could not finish the sentence. "After she killed you," the detective said grimly. Winston nodded. The detective stood up. We will put out an alert for both of them. In the meantime, Mr. Crawford, I recommend you stay here at the hospital. We will post an officer outside your door for protection." "Thank you." The detective left. Winston leaned back against his pillows, exhausted. "What happens now, Mama?" "Now we wait. We let the police do their job, and we focus on getting you healthy and safe." "I do not feel safe, not while Clarissa is still out there." "She will not get away with this, Winston. I promise you." But even as I said the words, I was not sure I believed them. Clarissa was smart, ruthless, determined. And she was still out there, somewhere, planning her next move. That evening, Marceline arrived at the hospital. She had driven 3 hours as soon as she heard the news. Her face was pale with worry and anger. "I knew something was wrong," she said, hugging Winston tightly. "I knew that woman was no good. I should have done something." "There was nothing you could have done," Winston said. "Clarissa was too good at hiding the truth." "Well, the truth is out now, and she is going to pay for what she did to you." Marceline turned to me. "Mama, have you eaten? You look exhausted." "I am fine, baby. I just want to stay with your brother." "You need to take care of yourself, too. Come on. Let us go to the cafeteria. Winston will be fine for a few minutes." I hesitated, but Winston nodded. "Go, Mama. I will be here when you get back." Marceline and I walked to the hospital cafeteria in silence. It was nearly empty at this hour. Just a few nurses and doctors grabbing late-night meals. We got some coffee and sat at a table in the corner. "Mama, how are you really doing?" Marceline asked. "I do not know, baby. I feel like I am in a nightmare that I cannot wake up from." "What you did was incredibly brave. Going to that cabin, finding the suitcase, confronting Clarissa." "I did not confront her. She confronted me, if Cornelius had not been there." I could not finish the sentence. The memory of Clarissa coming at me with that knife was too fresh, too terrifying. "She is going to be caught, Mama. The police are looking for her. She cannot run forever." "I hope you are right." We sat in silence for a moment, drinking our coffee. Then Marceline's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and frowned. "Who is it?" I asked. "I do not recognize the number." She answered the call. "Hello." I watched her face change, from confusion to shock to fear. "What is it?" I demanded. "Marceline, what is wrong?" She hung up the phone, her hands shaking. That was Clarissa. What did she say?" Marceline looked at me with terrified eyes. "She said this is not over. She said she is coming back to finish what she started. And she said..." "She said what?" "She said she knows where we are. She is watching us right now." I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked around the cafeteria, searching for any sign of Clarissa, any face that looked familiar, any eyes that seemed to be watching. And then I saw her, standing outside the cafeteria window, staring directly at us. "Clarissa." She smiled, that cold, terrible smile, and raised her hand in a small wave. Then she turned and disappeared into the darkness. I grabbed Marceline's arm and pulled her away from the window. "We need to get back to Winston, now." We ran through the hospital corridors, our footsteps echoing off the linoleum floors. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Clarissa was here. She had followed us. She was watching us. And she had promised to finish what she started. We reached Winston's room to find Cornelius standing guard outside the door. He saw our faces and immediately went on alert. "What happened?" "Clarissa is here," I gasped. "At the hospital. She called Marceline. We saw her outside the cafeteria window." Cornelius's expression hardened. "Stay with Winston. Do not let anyone in except hospital staff. I'm going to find security." He took off down the hallway. I pushed open the door to Winston's room, ushering Marceline inside. Winston looked up from his bed, alarmed by our expressions. "What is wrong? What happened?" "Clarissa is here," I said. "She is somewhere in the hospital." Winston's face went pale. No. She cannot be here. The police were supposed to find her. She slipped through, but we are not going to let her get to you. Cornelius is getting security. The police are on their way. But even as I said the words, I could see the terror in Winston's eyes. 7 years of abuse had conditioned him to fear this woman. 7 years of manipulation had convinced him that she was all-powerful, unstoppable. I sat on the edge of his bed and took his hands. Listen to me, Winston. Clarissa is not invincible. She is a desperate woman who is running out of options. We have the evidence. We have the police. We have each other. But she is so smart, Mama. She always has a plan. She always finds a way. Not this time. This time we are going to stop her. Cornelius returned 10 minutes later with 2 security guards and a police officer. The hospital is on lockdown, he reported. No one gets in or out without being checked. We have officers searching every floor. And Clarissa. No sign of her yet, but we will find her. The police officer stepped forward. Mrs. Crawford, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Every detail. I recounted the phone call, the glimpse of Clarissa through the cafeteria window, the smile, the wave, the way she disappeared into the darkness. She is playing games with us, the officer said grimly, trying to intimidate you, make you afraid. It is working, Marceline admitted. That is what she wants, but we are not going to give her the satisfaction. We are going to find her and take her into custody. He turned to the security guards. I want this room watched at all times. No one goes in or out without my approval. The guards nodded and took their positions outside the door. Try to get some rest, the officer told us. It is going to be a long night. Rest was impossible. I sat in a chair beside Winston's bed, watching the door, listening to every sound in the hallway. Marceline dozed fitfully on a small couch in the corner. Cornelius paced back and forth, unable to sit still. The hours crawled by, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And then, just after 3 in the morning, the power went out. The room plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie red glow over everything. What happened? Marceline cried. Stay calm, Cornelius said. It is probably just a power outage. But I knew better. This was not a coincidence. This was Clarissa. The door to Winston's room burst open. I expected to see the security guards. Instead, I saw nothing but empty hallway. Where are the guards? I demanded. Cornelius stepped into the hallway, looking left and right. They are gone, both of them. My blood ran cold. Cornelius, get back in here, lock the door. But before he could move, a figure emerged from the shadows of the hallway. Clarissa. She was dressed in dark clothes, her face partially obscured by the dim emergency lighting. In her hand, she held something that glinted in the red light. A gun. Good evening, family, she said, her voice calm and pleasant. I hope I am not interrupting anything. Cornelius moved to protect us, but Clarissa raised the gun. I would not do that if I were you. I am an excellent shot. Ask Winston. He has seen me practice. Winston shrank back in his bed, terror written across his face. What do you want, Clarissa? I asked, forcing my voice to remain steady. What do I want? I want what was promised to me. I want the money, the property, the life I was supposed to have. You were never promised anything. You stole from Winston. You abused him. You tried to kill him. He owed me. Clarissa's calm facade cracked, revealing the rage beneath. 7 years I gave him. 7 years of my life wasted on a weak, pathetic man who could not even stand up for himself. So you beat him. You controlled him. You planned to murder him. I did what I had to do. Winston was never going to give me what I deserved willingly, so I had to take it. She waved the gun at us. But you ruined everything. You and your nosy family. You could not just stay away. You had to come to the cabin. You had to see things you were not supposed to see. I saw you throw that suitcase into the lake, I said. I saw the blood on your hands. Clarissa laughed. The blood, that was nothing. just a small accident while I was disposing of the evidence. I cut myself on one of the documents. Ironic, really. Paper cuts can be so nasty. The police have the suitcase now. They have all the evidence. You cannot get away with this. Maybe not, but I can make sure you do not get away either. She raised the gun, pointing it directly at Winston. Any last words for your precious son? Time seemed to slow down. I looked at Winston, my beautiful boy, cowering in his hospital bed. I looked at Marceline, frozen with fear on the couch. I looked at Cornelius, tensed and ready to spring but helpless against the gun. And I looked at Clarissa, this woman who had tormented my son for 7 years, this monster who had stolen his money, his dignity, his peace of mind. I was not going to let her take his life, too. Clarissa, I said, stepping forward, if you are going to shoot someone, shoot me. Mama, no, Winston cried. Be quiet, baby. I kept my eyes on Clarissa. You want someone to pay for ruining your plans? I am the one who saw you at the lake. I am the one who got Cornelius to retrieve the suitcase. I am the one who told the police everything. Clarissa tilted her head, studying me. You would sacrifice yourself for him, for this weak, worthless man. He is not weak. He is not worthless. He is my son, and I would die 1,000 times over to protect him. Clarissa smiled. How touching, but I think I will just kill all of you instead. She aimed the gun at me. And then from behind her, a voice rang out. Police, drop your weapon. Clarissa spun around. The hallway was suddenly filled with officers, their guns drawn, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. For a moment, Clarissa hesitated. I could see her calculating, weighing her options. Then, in one swift motion, she grabbed Marceline and pressed the gun to her head. Anyone moves and she dies. The standoff seemed to last forever. Clarissa backed toward the window, dragging Marceline with her. My daughter was crying, her eyes wide with terror. Mama, help me, she whimpered. It is going to be okay, baby. Everything is going to be okay. But I did not know if that was true. Clarissa was desperate now, cornered, and desperate people did desperate things. Let her go, Clarissa, one of the officers said, his voice calm and steady. This does not have to end badly. Just put down the gun and let her go. End badly, Clarissa laughed. It already ended badly. The moment that old woman decided to spy on me, it all went wrong. There is still a way out of this. Just put down the gun. There is no way out. Do you not understand? I have nothing left, nothing. They took everything from me. That is not true, I said, stepping forward slowly. Clarissa, you still have your life. You still have a future. Do not throw that away. My future, Clarissa's voice cracked. My future was supposed to be Winston's money, his properties, his insurance policies. That was my future, and now it is gone. Money is not everything. There are other things that matter, things you can still have. Like what? Prison. That is where I am going if I give up. You think I do not know that? Prison is not the end. People serve their time and rebuild their lives. But if you hurt Marceline, if you hurt any of us, there is no coming back from that. Clarissa was silent for a moment. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the desperation warring with something else, something that might have been reason. You do not understand, she said finally. You cannot understand. I had nothing growing up. Nothing. We were poor. So poor we sometimes did not eat for days. I swore I would never live like that again. I swore I would do whatever it took to have money, to have security, to have power. And that is why you targeted Winston. He was perfect, rich, naive, easy to manipulate. I saw him at a party and I knew he was my ticket to the life I deserved. So you seduced him, married him, and then you destroyed him. I did not destroy him. I used him. There is a difference. Not to him. Not to the man you beat and controlled and terrorized for 7 years. Clarissa glanced at Winston, still cowering in his bed. He was weak. If he had been stronger, none of this would have happened. He was not weak. He was trapped by a woman who exploited his kindness and his love. Love, Clarissa sneered. Winston did not love me. He loved the idea of me, the beautiful wife, the perfect partner. He never saw the real me. Did you ever show him the real you? Or did you hide behind masks and manipulation from the very beginning? Clarissa was quiet. Her grip on Marceline loosened slightly. I never had a choice, she whispered. I did what I had to do to survive. There is always a choice, Clarissa. You chose to hurt people. You chose to steal and lie and abuse. Those were your choices, not survival. You do not know what it is like. You do not know what I have been through. Maybe not, but I know what you have put my son through. And I know that this, holding my daughter at gunpoint, is not going to solve anything. Clarissa looked at Marceline, really looked at her, and something in her expression shifted. She is innocent, I continued. Marceline never did anything to you. She does not deserve to be hurt because of what I did. None of you are innocent. You are all part of this family that ruined everything. We did not ruin anything. We uncovered the truth. There is a difference. Clarissa's hand trembled. The gun wavered. Please, Clarissa, let her go, end this peacefully. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. And then, slowly, Clarissa lowered the gun. She released Marceline, who ran sobbing into my arms. The officers moved in immediately, surrounding Clarissa, securing the weapon, placing her in handcuffs. It was over. The hours that followed were a blur of activity. Clarissa was taken into custody, escorted out of the hospital in handcuffs. The power was restored. The security guards, who had been knocked unconscious by Clarissa's brother Malcolm, were treated for their injuries. And Malcolm himself was arrested at a motel 3 miles from the hospital, where he had been waiting to help Clarissa escape. By dawn, the immediate crisis was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. Winston was evaluated by doctors and finally cleared to leave the hospital later that day. He was physically stable, but the emotional wounds would take much longer to heal. We gathered in the hospital lobby, my 3 children and me. Cornelius had dark circles under his eyes from the sleepless night. Marceline was still shaky, clutching a cup of coffee like it was a lifeline. Winston looked fragile, like a man who had been through a war. But they were alive, all of them. My family was alive and together. What happens now? Winston asked quietly. Now we go home, I said. We take care of each other, we heal. I do not know if I can heal, Mama, after everything. I do not know if I will ever feel normal again. You will, baby. It will take time, it will take work, but you will heal, I promise you. Marceline took Winston's hand. We are all here for you, Winston, whatever you need, however long it takes. Cornelius nodded. You are not alone anymore, brother. You never have to be alone again. Winston's eyes filled with tears. I wasted so many years pushing you all away. I was so ashamed, so afraid. I thought I could handle it on my own. You did not waste anything, I said firmly. You survived. You endured something terrible and you survived. That takes strength, Winston, real strength. I do not feel strong. That is okay. You do not have to feel strong right now. You just have to let us help you. We left the hospital that afternoon. The drive back to my house was quiet. Winston sat in the back seat, staring out the window, lost in thought. Marceline sat beside him, holding his hand. When we arrived at my home, I led Winston to the guest room where he had slept as a child. The same bed, the same dresser, the same faded curtains that his grandmother had sewn decades ago. Rest, I told him. You are safe here. Thank you, Mama. I kissed his forehead and left him to sleep. The weeks that followed were difficult but healing. Winston started therapy, working with a counselor who specialized in domestic abuse survivors. It was hard for him to talk about what he had experienced, hard to confront the shame and fear that Clarissa had instilled in him. But slowly, session by session, he began to open up. He began to understand that what happened to him was not his fault, that he had been the victim of a calculated, ruthless abuser who had exploited his trust and his love. The legal proceedings moved forward as well. Clarissa was charged with attempted murder, assault, financial fraud, and a host of other crimes. Malcolm was charged as her accomplice. The evidence from the suitcase proved devastating. The photographs of Winston's injuries, the financial records showing the theft, the forged documents, all of it painted a picture of a methodical, years-long campaign of abuse and exploitation. Clarissa tried to claim that she was the real victim, that Winston had been abusing her, that she had only acted in self-defense. But no one believed her. The evidence was too clear. The truth was too obvious. She was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 35 years in prison. Malcolm received 20 years for his role in the conspiracy. When the verdict was read, I sat in the courtroom and wept. Not tears of joy, not exactly, but tears of relief, tears of closure, tears for all the years my son had suffered in silence. Justice had been served, but the scars would remain forever. 6 months after the trial, Winston sold the lakeside cabin. He could not bear to return there. Too many terrible memories, too much pain trapped within those walls. He used the money to buy a small house closer to me, a modest place with a garden and a porch where he could sit and watch the sunset. "I do not need anything fancy anymore," he told me. "I just need peace. I just need to feel safe." And slowly, he began to find both. He reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during his marriage. He started volunteering at a local shelter for abuse survivors, using his experience to help others who were going through what he had endured. He even started dating again, cautiously, carefully. A kind woman from his support group who understood what he had been through. "Her name is Delilah," he told me one afternoon, a shy smile on his face. "She is gentle, Mama, patient. She does not push me, she just accepts me." That is beautiful, baby. You deserve that. I am learning to believe that. It is hard, but I am learning. 1 year after the night at the lake, I gathered my family for a special dinner. All of us together. Winston, Marceline, Cornelius, their spouses and children, the whole Crawford clan filling my house with laughter and noise and love. After dinner, I stood up to make a toast. 1 year ago, our family went through something terrible, something that could have destroyed us. The room fell quiet. I watched my daughter-in-law throw a suitcase into a lake, and what was inside that suitcase changed everything. It revealed secrets and lies and years of hidden suffering. I looked at Winston, who was holding Delilah's hand. But it also revealed something else. It revealed the strength of this family, the love that binds us together, the courage to face the truth, no matter how painful. Tears were forming in my eyes. "Winston, I am so proud of you, for surviving, for healing, for choosing to live your life fully despite everything you have been through." Winston wiped his own tears. "I could not have done it without you, Mama, without all of you. That is what family is for, baby. We lift each other up. We carry each other through the darkness. We never let go." I raised my glass. To family, to truth, to second chances, and to the future, whatever it may bring. To family, everyone echoed. After the guests had gone and the dishes were washed, I sat alone on my back porch. The night was clear and quiet. Stars sparkled overhead. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak tree that had stood in my yard for 60 years. I thought about everything that had happened, the secrets, the revelations, the terror, the healing. I thought about Clarissa sitting in a prison cell paying for her crimes. I did not feel satisfaction. I did not feel joy. I just felt tired, tired of the pain, tired of the memories. But I also felt something else, something that surprised me. Gratitude. Gratitude that I had been there that night, that I had seen what I saw, that I had found the courage to act. If I had not gone to the cabin early, if I had not seen Clarissa at the lake, if I had not decided to retrieve that suitcase, Winston might be dead. Clarissa might have gotten away with everything. The truth might have stayed buried forever. But it did not, because I was there, because I saw, because I refused to look away. Sometimes, I thought, the most ordinary moments lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. A decision to leave early, a glimpse of something strange, a choice to seek the truth. That is how lives are changed. That is how families are saved. The next morning, I woke early and went for a walk. The neighborhood was quiet at this hour, just a few joggers and dog walkers. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I walked without destination, just enjoying the peace and the beauty of the morning. And as I walked, I thought about what I had learned. I learned that appearances can be deceiving, that the people we trust most can sometimes be the ones hiding the darkest secrets. I learned that abuse does not always leave visible marks, that it can be emotional, financial, psychological, that it can happen to anyone, regardless of age or gender or background. I learned that silence is the abuser's greatest weapon, that shame and fear keep victims trapped, that the only way to break free is to speak the truth, no matter how hard it is. And I learned that family matters, that love matters, that standing together, supporting each other, refusing to give up, that is what makes the difference. Winston had spent 7 years in a prison of Clarissa's making, but he had found his way out. He had found his way back to us. And together, we would help him build a new life, a life free from fear, a life filled with love. If you are watching this story, I want you to understand something. What happened to my son can happen to anyone. Abuse does not discriminate. It happens in rich families and poor families. It happens to men and women. It happens behind closed doors, hidden from the world. If you or someone you know is being abused, please reach out for help. There are resources available. There are people who care. You do not have to suffer in silence. And if you ever see something that does not look right, a suitcase being thrown into a lake, blood on someone's hands, fear in a loved one's eyes, do not look away. Trust your instincts. Seek the truth. Because sometimes, what you discover will change everything. I saw my daughter-in-law throw a suitcase into the lake, and what was inside changed everything. It changed my understanding of my son's marriage. It changed my family. It changed my life. But most importantly, it saved my son. And that makes everything I went through worth it. Thank you for watching until the end. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to my story. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to this channel. Press that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Press the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. I want to know who is here with me. I want to see how big our family can grow. And if you know someone who is suffering, who is trapped in a situation like Winston was, please share this story with them. Let them know they are not alone. Let them know there is hope. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Love your families. Stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Because that is what matters. That is what makes us human.